You know, one of the keys to a city's success is its ability to innovate and to always respond and be flexible to new challenges. During these tough economic times, we have many people who are dropping through our safety nets that are traditionally in place for families and end up on the streets. Today, we're talking with an incredible leader, Bob Brown, the COO of the Fresno Rescue Mission. And Bob's going to be sharing with us some of the innovative ways that the Fresno Rescue Mission is intercepting people so that they can get back onto the ladder of success in our communities. This is our city, and I'm H. Spees.
It belongs to you, it belongs to me. This is our city.
Well, welcome to This Is Our City, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, H.
Yeah, great to have you. So, you are at the Fresno Rescue Mission, and boy, it's one of our cities and one of our country's very best charities. I've heard that it's received a very high rating in terms of GuideStar and other methodologies of rating nonprofits.
Yes, we are the only four-star charity navigator as the rating system nonprofit in Fresno County.
Wow, fantastic. Congratulations.
We've had that distinction for 4 out of the last 5 years.
What allows Fresno Rescue Mission to achieve those standards? What are the metrics that they use to measure your effectiveness?
Well, I think there's a number of things that they use. Obviously, you know, there's a strength of management, there's a strength of how the finances are used and how much actually goes into services. And you'd have to ask that company exactly how they rate, but they look at all of the programming that we do. We also we came in second for the Samaritan Award a couple of years ago, so we do have national attention.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I know that you haven't always worked for the Rescue Mission. You got here sort of through a circuitous route. How did you end up at Fresno Rescue Mission?
Yeah, it is probably more than that, because I was actually raised in a small farming town about 70 miles north of here called Cressy, California. In fact, you know, Andy Griffith used to tell a story one time. He said the town that he was from was so small that the trains used to stop there once a week just to laugh. Well, in Cressy, the trains never stop, and so I just grew up on a farm. I was a farm boy. I bought my first registered Holstein when I was 7 years old, and by the time I was 16, I had a herd of 23
Wow.
registered Holsteins that were all bought and paid for and showed in the fairs. I was a national 4-H awards winner when I was dairy awards winner when I was 13. You know, involved in every sport that was, whatever sport was in season, that's what I did, and that's what you do. I mean, hard work of the farm actually, you know, then paid off into, you know, I entered a banking career. I worked for Bank of America for a little over 30 years, and I ended with them as a senior vice president. Was head of operations for Nevada, and, you know, I had worldwide assignments. I worked in Indonesia. I came here with a bank that was operating at the time, Valleywide Bank, and was a senior vice president for them, and West America bought them out. And my pastor in town asked me, he said, you know, I would like you to join my staff, but I can't afford to pay you any money. So that was Steve Davidson at Clovis Hills, and so I agreed to go over and go to work for him for 2 years for nothing.
Wow.
And so we did that, and, you know, about 5 years ago, I sensed God's call in my life to do something different, and as I went through that, I prayed through that, I took myself really through a 40-day process. And the best, as I understood it, it was to be in more direct ministry. And so I finished my 40 days on a Saturday. I went to church on a Sunday. I took a solitude day on Monday, and I wrote out my letter of resignation. I turned it in, and I didn't know what I was going to do next.
Wow, let's unpack some of this, because you're laying down some spiritual dynamite here, and that I think our guests, our folks at home, are going to really want to be interested in. About 30-year banking career, incredibly successful, farm boy, and now you're at the top of the banking profession, and then your pastor asks you to join his staff, and you offer to do that. Now you're way too young to retire. So you did it, and you said, you kind of slipped in there that you worked for nothing for 2 years. Mm-hmm. What is that all about? What was that discussion like with your wife?
Well, actually, it was interesting, because when I told her that, we had moved from Nevada here, and our home hadn't sold. And so I knew that God was up to something, and it hadn't sold. And it was economic times such as this. The real estate market had bottomed out in Nevada. Sometimes it's cyclical and sometimes it's city by city. And so our home was on the market for 17 months.
Wow.
And so when I called her and I told her this, she said, you know, your mom and I have been praying for this for years.
Wow.
I said, well, thanks a lot.
Spiritual sabotage.
You know, what do you do? A praying wife is a very important thing to have in your corner.
Wow, that's huge. So for her, it was just the outcome of years of prayer, that not that you would come to faith because you were already there, but that you would what? Find that sweet spot that God had for you in ministry?
Exactly, that I would do what I wanted to do. And let me go back. I mean, I can give you a prayer. I heard a prayer and then I modified it for me.
Yep.
And it goes like this. In fact, people heard me at Clovis Hills say it so much that when I left there, one of the people painted a painting that's on my wall, and they have the wording on there, and it's because I love mountains and things like that. So it says, Father, I want to know you. If it's from the shelter of the cleft of your rock or beneath the protection of your covering wing, I just want to know you as you are, so I might adore you as I should. In Jesus' name I pray. Now, the first time I prayed that prayer, I said, now, I don't know if I can do that. Loss of goods or friends. I mean, I was wildly successful by some people's standards. Yep. And so I didn't know if I was willing to give that up, but I knew I wanted to. If that's what it took to have a closer relationship with God, then that's what I wanted to do.
That's where the cleft of the rock and the shelter of the wings comes
Yeah,
in.
I mean, I had to give up loss of goods or friends or length of days, and so goods was the first thing that I had to check. And then friends. Well, shortly thereafter, after I began praying that prayer, we were moved out of Nevada, out of Reno, which I love. It's 35 minutes from my house to the top of Mount Rose, and kind of things like that. So, and then length of days. And so for a Christian man, that was the easiest thing to give up. And so I remember kind of bargaining with God, if you will. I said, now, okay, I'm willing to do that because absent with the body, present with you, that's a good thing. But please don't let it negatively impact my family.
Wow.
And so that's where I left it. And every day I began praying through that prayer. And even when some years later, when I went through the 40-day process, I reminded myself of the prayer and I went back to it and I just said, I just want to do what you want me to do.
So it's a prayer of total surrender, basically.
Yeah, as much as any human can totally surrender.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what that's like. But as
And
best I can do, I want to follow what God wants me to do.
Well, now, the next transition from Clovis Hills to the rescue mission, that you described a 40-day process. Is that something that you've done often in your life?
No, it's the only time I've done it.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, really, in the Bible, a lot of things happen in 40 days.
Yep.
I mean, 40 days, 40 years, all of the 40s are an important thing. And Rick Warren wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And in that one, of course, he starts off the book with, this is not about you. And then he goes on very quickly into that. He said, life is a test, life is a trust, and life is a temporary assignment. And then he begins to unpack in that one. And so I had been through that multiple times, and I decided that would be my organizing principle. I would just go back through Rick's book and let it speak to me as I went.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, let's take a look through one of the clips that you've provided us on the Fresno Rescue Mission. We'll talk a little bit about how your journey from business to church to rescue mission, actually it's been sort of a downward journey, Bob. Yeah. If you haven't noticed, it's kind of downhill. Where do you go from here, man?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like Moses. I mean, 1 foot. Yeah.
But
we'll find out.
What's downhill with man is often uphill with God. So let's take a look at this clip, and we'll talk a little bit about the ministry at the mission.
Good.
We believe in the hope that every community can be free from gangs, drugs, violence, and crime, and that our community can be restored. Clearly, the homeless throughout the Fresno community and those individuals who are facing poverty, they're with us day in and day out. But I am excited because in this process I'm watching my own life change a little bit, and I'm getting excited for the vision that the Rescue Mission has for the greater Fresno area.
Well, one of the big focuses for the Rescue Mission going forward is to help children and families in need and the moms of kids that are struggling, and we desperately need additional capacity. We need more resources, more facilities and programs to help kids and their moms in particular, and that's exactly what the Rescue Mission is taking on with this capital campaign, and it's badly needed.
You know, the problems we have had are solvable. We can improve. We can make this one of the best cities in the world if we all pull together and work together.
Well, Bob, I mean, this is a remarkable clip because you've got stellar leaders on there. Nathan Magzig has been on the Clovis City Council. Of course, Ashley Swearingen's our mayor, and then Dan DeSantis is with the Fresno Regional Foundation. They're all talking about the Fresno Rescue Mission. And you start off with saying that you've got a God-sized dream. Is this city ready for a God-sized dream? Now, that type of thinking is not what's normally associated with a rescue mission, with folks dealing with the last, the least, and the lost. I mean, what do you mean by a God-sized dream? What does that look like to you guys? And where did you come up with that language?
Well, doing nothing is just not good enough. I think it was Oscar Wilde that said, it's a great mistake to do nothing when you can only do a little. Do what you can. And so as we looked at the area of women and children specifically, we saw that as an underserved need in our community. Yes, there are good ministries. There are actually great ministries and a lot of things going on, but it didn't go as far as we could. And then oftentimes moms and children were separated, and we think that the family units ought to be together.
So when mom drops off of the social safety net and hits the streets, often children go into the foster care system and moms are either out on the streets or in some shelter. Right.
So imagine this. What would happen if we can find a place for mom and child to stay together? They wouldn't get wrapped up into the, some of the social stratas that they have now. In fact, I asked the question of one of our social services leader one time when it came to abuse. I said, how often is it the boyfriend? And they said to me, that's the first question we ask. It's not stepdad, it's not dad, it's a boyfriend oftentimes. And so we find that the women are in the same abusive cycle. Maybe they're not being physically abused, but they're in the same abusive cycle. And the abuse among women and children is way, way, way too high. And we just couldn't not do something.
So with the rising number of women and children on the streets, with this economic reality that we're in, you guys decided to go after that, and it took a unique facility, and it sounds like you found one.
Well, it did. We actually had planned before the economy tanked building a community from scratch, finding 10, 15 acres and building a brand new city. But that takes a lot of money, and the money sources kind of dried up a little bit. But in the course of pursuing what God wanted for us, we ran across a motel that had been abandoned. And when you look at the property, it's just a beautiful property. We have about 9.5 acres, so there's room for ball fields and play fields and gardens.
Incredible.
And it's got a courtyard that we've got cleaned up now, and a landscaping individual from our community came in and for free probably did $20,000 or more than that worth of work, pruning trees, cleaning trees, and this is going to be a home for women who need a place to be, and we'll build programming around that, Christian programming, and they will be able to stay with us for a year while they get their lives together. And we'll run a licensed daycare center. So in the last part of their program, when they're able to go out and get a job, we can still keep their child there in our licensed center, and then when mom has saved up a little bit of money, then she can move out.
Stacking the deck for self-sufficiency. Well, we want to hear more about this. This is an exciting program, and right after the break, we're going to talk a little more about the Vagabond Hotel and what that is becoming thanks to the Fresno Rescue Mission.